He's been there. Wow.
Computer.
That's a huge amount of money. That's a huge, no, yeah, but it's It loves it.
The longest minute I've
I have time.
10 minutes.
They get stuck. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Will you please rise and receive the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Would you please call the roll?
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Mr. Ward.
Yes.
Mr. Roladai.
Yes.
Mrs. Gibson.
Yes.
Dr. Vernon.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone this evening. Thank you for coming. And we have some MVU students, I see. Nice to have you and all of our guests. So thank you for coming this evening. And I would entertain a motion now to approve the minutes of our August meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Ruladai. Is there a second?
I'll second those.
Guessman, seconds. And were there any questions or corrections? Hearing none, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Roladai.
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Mr. Ward.
Yes.
Dr. Vernon.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Stevens.
Thank you. We do have a commendation to present tonight. Not so much of a presenting anything physically, but an acknowledgement. This coming Wednesday night, many of our board members will be attending the Ohio School Board's regional conference in Columbus. And Dr. Bennett, our board president, is being recognized for 35 years of service to the community. And so I thought it was only befitting just to bring that to the attention of our audience and our viewers. And thank you so much for that 35 years of service. And we look forward to your speech on Wednesday night.
Yeah.
But thank you. We'll give you that. And Butch has had to endure all those 35 years to have you.
It's all voluntary.
Thank you, Butch.
I do have a number of things in reports and public participation tonight, things that are just, they're kind of exciting to see that have happened in and throughout the district and things that are yet to come. Two things that I put on the agenda for tonight, and since September we're not highlighting any particular school, it felt appropriate to do so. Chris Keaton is our high school English department chair, just a valued teacher, and as an English teacher, she really had an interest in kind of going over towards the England area with a group of students, and what a neat trip, and I thought it might be really nice for her to kind of share a little bit about that trip. We're going to later in the agenda, I've shared an item for information from you that we may approve later if we have to, but we're not sure that we need to. But all that to be said, these educational experiences abroad just bring so much unique perspective for our students when they get a chance to do it. And obviously it made an impact on Mrs. Keaton because she's ready to go again. So Chris, I'll let you kind of come on up and maybe just share a little bit about that trip you took this summer.
Let me grab the mouse.
There you go.
Yeah, so there's our crew. There were 18 of us that went, plus 18 students and 2 chaperones. Maria Casebeer. Well, this trip actually got started in 2018, and then we all know what happened. So it was postponed for 2 years. There were 3 students who originally were in the original group, and then the rest sort of fell off. Graduation, additional reasons, but we were left with 18 that went. So anywhere from, this was in the summer, in June, so these were sophomores to graduating seniors that attended. So it was a 10-day trip, and when you do these trips, 10 days includes travel. So travel day 1, we started in Columbus and went to Toronto, and then we had an overnight flight to London. And this was when we were in a very, it was a very fluid environment because we had a lot of things that were changing as far as COVID restrictions and standards. So that was pretty much the struggle. We had to thank goodness for Denise Conway through, kudos to your mama. She did all of our testing that we had to have done in that 72-hour period, ran it through a lab, and we were getting our results Saturday night, but we were supposed to meet in the airport at 1, so it was always like nail biting. But we got it. We made it on there, and then we had a layover in Toronto. So day 2, we landed in London, which at customs for some of these students it was quite an experience. You will see up in the right-hand corner, we were there the day after the Platinum Jubilee. So on that Saturday was when the last concert was held, and we arrived in London on that Sunday night, Monday, and so we saw a lot of remnants of a lot of the festivities. So floral arrangements everywhere, a lot of scaffolding. They had just recommenced the changing of the guard. So we were very fortunate that we arrived on that Monday and sort of saw the transition between the two. We did a walking tour, Piccadilly Circus, Trafalgar Square, and Leicester Square. We were standing in front of Leicester Square and Piccadilly Circus up there. Then the next day, we did more in London. You can see that's the signage right in the walkway area going over to Buckingham Palace, and we saw the changing of the guard. Both of those are actually stills from the video that we took, which was phenomenal. We saw the guard standing outside of, at that time, Prince Charles' residence, but we saw Buckingham Palace with all of the scaffolding. So some of our pictures are not as pretty as what Buckingham Palace is, but we were actually there in historic times, so that's pretty cool. We went to museums. All the museums in London are free, like the Smithsonian. So we were able to bebop in a lot of those different places. So day 4, we were on our way to Wales. We crossed the Bristol Channel and actually stayed in another country, which was, actually I didn't know that. That was a surprise item on the itinerary. And on our way there, we went to Stonehenge and Salisbury, saw the Magna Carta. There are only 4 remaining original copies. We got to see one of those. Our tour, because our kids were exceptional, our tour director convinced our bus driver to make a side over into Avebury, which is another henge, but more authentic in a small town. And then we stayed in Wales. Day 5 is called the Birmingham region, but we went to Bath and we saw the Roman baths. We got to go through all of that, but we also took a tour of this Georgian sculpture, this whole area region. We found out about Jane Austen and her time there. And then we made a mad dash, to my chagrin, through Anne Hathaway's cottage like it was literally a whirlwind. And the kids felt sorry for me and bought me bookmarks, but because I just wanted to stay. But it was closing, but we did get to go through Anne Hathaway's, and I will tell you that there were a couple moments that I was completely slayed, and that was one. I was standing in the threshold of the door where William Shakespeare would have come calling on Anne Hathaway, and it was really neat. Then we went to Stratford-upon-Avon and spent tons of time in a museum. We went to the Trinity Church where Shakespeare was buried. Was just phenomenal. Stratford-upon-Avon was nothing like I expected. Day 6, we went to Oxford. That was also nothing that I expected. I thought we were going to go to like Gambier and see Kenyon, kind of esque. And it was unbelievable. And I really did not know a lot about New College. They say New College, but it's one of the oldest ones there. So we learned a lot of information. We went into the dining hall where Hogwarts, the dining hall was actually filmed, and it's a room this size, but with movie magic, it expanded. But it was full use. You could actually see where students were coming in to eat. We stood underneath the tree that Malfoy was turned into a ferret, I believe. So the kids really liked that. We returned to London and we had some of our standard fare of bangers and mash. They were not all a fan. I loved it. Day 7 in London, we went to the Tower of London. The picture that you have, we are actually on our way up the London Eye. So it was a fantastic view of Parliament and Big Ben and the Thames. So we walked the South Bank and went into like the Globe Theatre region. Again, some went into the Tate Museum because everything is free. We went to, this was another moment. So I'm old and I saw Princess Diana on my little black and white TV when I was in 6th grade get married. And so we were able to go into St. Paul's Cathedral in the middle of a service. And so you're hearing the organ and you're standing on the floor and I cried like a baby. So we had fish and chips, phenomenal. And it is pronounced the tube. You actually say a ch sound. So we got to experience that. And the kids got to ride the underground. Mind the gap. Okay, Paris in day 8. So we took a Eurostar. We got up, not actually too early, it was reasonable. And we traveled from London to Paris through the English Channel. That was quite an experience. So then we made it into Paris and we had a bus tour, Eiffel Tower, Notre Dame. I cannot remember the place, but it was specifically where Napoleon was buried. So just a lot of really neat history. And then Notre Dame, I sort of cut it out of the picture, but again, there's all kinds of scaffolding. And at first you're sort of like, ugh, ruins the picture. But again, we're in there in history, right? So repairing the damage from the fire. And we, on the next day, went to the Louvre. The students are walking up the Jardins du Puy, and I just Madame Bishop here because I'm butchering it, but this is the walkway leading up to the Louvre, which was fantastic because even though it is so historic, you would see trampolines like were in the ground. They used it like it was this very public area, so it was really neat for the students to see old and new sort of colliding and coming together. And there's the Louvre. We did see the Mona Lisa, and then we had a Seine River cruise. Where we saw a different view of the Eiffel Tower. It was phenomenal. And then, so this is departing. We had quite the story. We didn't have a charter bus to get us from our hotel to the airport. And so George, our tour director, was phenomenal. And he put all of my students in 5 taxis. And I had a moment because I'm like, but the way we had it, I don't think I planned it because it was too much of a rush because we were trying to make a flight and every student in every car had data. So at least one student. So I was able to communicate with them. We literally ran to the gate to make our flight to Toronto. It was a crazy last day, and we would still do it all again. So that's it.
Any questions for Chris? What a trip, huh?
Oh, wow. I think you've just convinced a lot of people they'd like to go.
Yes,
And thank you for your time.
Yes,
And all the effort you put in to take this.
So this trip did not include Scotland. We flew into London and then went around the country and then came back to London and then went over to Paris. But I would like to, in 24, to add Scotland. You fly into Edinburgh and then we'll go to York, Yorkshire, and sort of make our way down through England. Not hitting all the same spots, but some different ones, but then ending up in Paris. I mean, it's only about $590 more for the 2 days extra in Paris and taking the Eurostar. So I feel like that's something that we should do, but it would be an 11-day trip.
Okay. So this was 8, this would be 11, the new one?
Yeah, that was actually 10 with the travel days, but yeah, that'll be the difference. So.
And so in 2024, you're looking to do another trip. I see it's early June.
Same time frame.
Same time frame.
Yeah.
So we want to start to see if kids are interested, get them all signed up.
Yep.
And if you need board members to attend.
I have just a silly question.
Yep.
In one photo, the young man was pointing down at that, it said, "Watch your head." Why is
So
that?
that was going into the new college, and that was because everybody was on horses or whatever traditionally, that was a way that it would literally knock people's heads off.
Oh,
So as Quinn was standing there, because it was a doorway that they were using,
okay.
it was legitimately that far beneath where Quinn stood.
Oh, for heaven's sakes. I was just curious about that because that looked so funny.
Tons more pictures, and if you wanted to look more, I have an Instagram account. I actually started it with this trip. So every day I gave the families what we did in about 4 or 5 pictures and videos. So that was the main communication back to
I'm sure they appreciated that.
Yeah.
I know this was a couple years in the making. How many students that went this summer are seniors this year? Were there some underclassmen?
Yeah, so there were 2 girls that are current sophomores, 2 or 3. The majority of them would be seniors now, and then there are a few that are juniors. And then I had I had 2 girls that graduated right before the trip. So Marty Bell's daughter, Christine Bell, she hung in there for all 3 years of planning, and another family. So, yeah, we try to do it early enough so that they can get on a payment plan. It's an expensive trip, so, but most of, it's airfare and Eurostar and meals and lodging, and the additional excursions that we do, so.
There are some scholarship opportunities that we
There
can
are.
aware of, that if kids want to try to earn a scholarship, it's something to do.
You said payment plan with the travel company, is that correct?
Yep, so they handle all of that. They set up, they choose their method, they can pay in full, and there's no price increase. So if they enroll in October, they just simply divide that all out. And they pay, and I mentioned earlier that it's a big cost, but a lot of families did some things with their children. Like they sat down and just said, okay, if this is our $200 a month, this is where you need to have skin in the game and what you have to pay for. Petitioning family and friends to sponsor them to go on a trip like this. So a lot of them got very creative about how to support it. So many worked and then blew all of the money. For spending money, they would say, "Miss Keaton, I've got $500, it's all my money." Okay, buy another shirt, go ahead. So it was neat. It doesn't go without, it's teenagers away from home that, there's some other emotions that come up, but it's why I really want, no offense, who want to go in the community. I really want it to only be students. I just feel like that experience, aside from the chaperones that we need, but it's a 6-to-1 ratio. But I just feel like it's a different experience. Watching them manage their money and manage their time, I feel like that's something that they need to get their sea legs. And they don't do that with parents.
And dealing with stress.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So.
You felt pretty safe the whole time, everywhere you were at?
Oh, everywhere. There wasn't, everywhere.
Excellent.
All right.
Well, thank you. We'll let you here soon and start advertising and getting this thing going. Thanks for stopping and sharing with us. I did have one other really report that I wanted to share. So Justin came to us about a week ago with an idea, a small idea at that point. It turned into another idea, which turned into a monster idea. And so I'll let Justin share with you what this week brings.
Truth be told, that came to him about a week ago. It's already been in the planning for about a month. But just to let you know. So yes, we are, and I don't know.
I do have a link here.
Connected that, yeah. So this is in your board reports. This is actually done through our Jack and Journal class. So some of the new Mac stuff, and in particular, Mac Hannah is kind of a guru on the whole creating things, so it's pretty neat. So this is a flyer. So this coming week, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we're going to have Military and First Responders Appreciation Week. So we have some home events that just happen to coincide with this home football game as well. So instead of just one football game appreciation, we're going to do 3 days. So volleyball will start it off on Thursday. here at home against Worcester. Football Friday against New Philadelphia, and then we have both boys and girls soccer games are at home on Saturday. So it really fit in with this schedule. This whole kind of concept and idea really started with some relationships that Denise Conway and Josh White and myself and one of our coaches through the Knox County Veterans Services. So Kevin Henthorne and Colin Pack, who coaches baseball for us, and he also runs our play clock for football. Really started brainstorming this, and Denise and Josh just kind of took off with this thing and turned it into what I'll explain to you. So we've got 3 days of events, a lot of groups involved from the State Highway Patrol, Mount Vernon Fire, Mount Vernon Police, the Sheriff's Department, the Ohio Army National Guard with General Rhodes, who has just been awesome to work with and really took this off. So Thursday, we have our final meeting. The military is very particular in terms of times and approvals and whatnot. So as of right now, Thursday, we'll start it off with kind of a Chinook helicopter that's going to be present on campus. We're still to be determined in terms of what that time is. And if you haven't been out here on a Thursday night, Colt football and youth soccer and everything else is here on campus, which is awesome. So the logistics of making sure we don't have 4 and 5-year-olds in the landing area is going to be awesome. So that's Thursday, and then we'll have our game. So our freshmen will kick off here in the field house, and then JV at 5 o'clock, followed by the varsity. The Knox County Air Force ROTC will junior ROTC will do the color presentation, will decorate the gym. All 4 of these games, any veteran, active duty, military, first responders, they get in for free to any of these events. And we're not going to be ID card hounds. It's going to be the honor system in terms of if they come up and let us know that they are either a current or a retired member of the police department, fire department, military, then they'll be admitted for free. Okay, so that's Thursday. Friday is the football game. A lot of festivities. It also happens to coincide with our Colt football night, which there's 390 little ones that are going to be recognized prior to the game. All of our pregame stuff, where if you come late and like to show up right at game time, you're going to miss several of our festivities. So I encourage you to come early if you're coming to the game on Friday. There we are, again, final details to come on Wednesday, but it looks like we'll have a Black Hawk helicopter. It will land on the varsity baseball diamond around 2:30. So then once they do their post-flight checks, then we'll open up the varsity baseball diamond so people can come and get in and touch it, so on and so forth. And then bumping all of our pregame timing up to allow time for the national anthem, and then for the Black Hawk to kind of do a flyover as it leaves prior to kickoff. In between the first and second quarter, we're going to do a signing ceremony for Noah Hubbard, who just committed to the Ohio Army National Guard. So General Rhodes and his staff will do a condensed version of the signing ceremony in between, a commitment ceremony in between the first and second quarter. Halftime will be Trevor Marco, our new band director, is putting all of the new music together for all of the military's songs. So we'll get that chance as the music is playing for those members of the Army, Navy, etc. It was hard for him to find the Coast Guard, but they did find it. So we'll get a chance to, for those guys and everybody to get a chance to be recognized at that time as well. Just several thank yous. Obviously, our Jacket Journal class on what they've done. General Rhodes has been phenomenal. The Knox County Services, Jeremiah, Officer Armstrong, who is our SRO, and Chief Christopher. I mean, it's truly been a team effort, and there's so many more. Wilson Warner, Knox, there's 13 American flags on dowel rods that our seniors, both volleyball, girls soccer, they'll run out with whenever they're introduced. So it's been a team effort. So far, it seems that there's a lot of people that are really excited about this opportunity, with the exception of Mr. Hankins, because there's so many free people getting into our events. So what can you do? One, we would love for you to be present. Whether it's all of those events, we would love, I think it would be a great opportunity for our board members to be there, our administrators to be there. And if you do want to help, then in particular on Friday, if you do come early and you want to hang out by one of our gates, unfortunately, one of my assistants had a death in the family here actually this morning, so I'm not quite sure where we're going to be in terms of that staff there. So if you are available and you want to hang out by the gate for a little bit, and all I'd ask you to do is be friendly and just ask anyone. If you're a veteran, because new Philly fans as well will get in for free if they're a member of the armed forces or first responder. So if you want to hang out and just ask folk, if you're a veteran, you can come on in, you don't have to wait in this line. So
What time would that be?
anytime, we'll open the gates at about 5:45. So and like I said, well, our first event on Friday, so youth football is coming in at 6:20, and then we'll have an honorary coin toss. So we have a number of our both veterans and current first responders and military that will participate in the coin toss. That coin toss will be at 6:30. Colt football and cheerleaders will be introduced at 6:35. 6:40 is when the band will take the field for their march, so that's a little bit early from there. And then our team will obviously come out, and we're going to have a number of vehicles, from the ladder truck to State Highway Patrol is bringing a 70-foot trailer that's going to be down by the baseball concession area there, so that you can go in, take a look at. So it's going to be a neat event, and a number of different military vehicles that we'll have parked out on the track during the game. So, questions?
Wow.
It's exciting. It's going to be exciting.
There's also, you're going to see a new look at the jackets on Friday night, if you want to.
Yes, so the National Guard, kind of the month of September primarily, they kind of pick a few different games throughout the state of Ohio, and so they lend you, if it falls into that weekend on that Friday, they'll lend you camouflage jerseys. So our football team will be in camouflage jerseys for that game. And another shout out to Gulp Cleaners. So we have to launder them on Saturday and they pick them up on Monday. So they've donated their laundering service, dry cleaning service, to do that on Saturday, which is awesome as well. All of our other sports that are participating, boys soccer, girls soccer, volleyball, so our boosters are providing them with some dry fit warm-up shirts, so we can't change necessarily the girls soccer uniform for the game, but they'll have warm-up shirts to wear, t-shirt. It's our MV and some cool camouflage, and first responders, military appreciation, and then some thank yous on there. So everybody that's participating will get something. Obviously, like I said, the football team, just based on the loan of the uniforms, will get an opportunity to wear those.
That's awesome.
Sounds just like planning a Christmas program with 500 elementary children.
That's right. That's right.
Very well done.
I was thinking more like a 400 person wedding reception, but maybe,
That would work too. That is wonderful. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Hi guys, I'm
Hello.
Ella Conway. I'm the senior class president. So I'll just be talking to you about what's going on this week and next week at the school. So next week is going to be Spirit Week for our homecoming. It's going to be at the Field House on October 1st from 8 to 11. And then next week we also have our bonfire. It's kind of like a pep rally with the football players and all of the homecoming court. And on that night, the King and Queen will also be announced. And then the homecoming game will also be next Friday. And then also the theme for the dance is disco. So that's kind of
Disco.
Yes, disco. Yeah. So student government will also be decorating, I think, the day of the dance. So we'll get to the decorations here soon. And then the tickets are on sale right now this week and then next week, before and after school. And then September 30th, we're also trying something new for this homecoming with Mrs. McClure and I. On all the senior athletes and the homecoming court will visit every elementary school in Mount Vernon and do a mini pep rally to get them excited for the homecoming game.
Great.
And then, in addition, all fall sports are in mid-season. So we have volleyball, football, boys and girls soccer, golf, and then tennis for the girls, and then cross country.
Wow.
And so, moving on from homecoming, we also have September 27th is the college fair night, where all kinds of colleges will come and do their share, and you'll get your papers and just, I think it's for any grade, so you can go and get your experience. So And then, as Mr. Stanford said, this week is also the Military and First Responders Appreciation Week at all the sporting events, those 3 days. And then another topic, students are starting their application for National Honor Society. So that'll take place, I think the due date is mid-October. So, yeah, that's all I have.
Busy time.
Yeah, of course, thank you guys.
Ella, is
Thank
the
you.
bonfire Wednesday or Thursday night?
Wednesday night at 7 p.m. It's kind of by the high school, the girls volleyball, softball fields. So like, there's gonna be a trailer.
Yeah.
And yeah. Thank you.
Okay, and then,
I don't see Darcy or Mike.
okay. And I have no public participation, so we'll move ahead then to no board items, additions, deletions.
I did have a couple, I guess, I'm not sure they're really additions or deletions, but there may be some changes. So section 7 on your agenda, we've moved that Scotland, England, Paris trip to items for information at this time. And if we have to come back for board approval on that, we will, but we feel like that was a better place for it for right now. And then in section 11, personnel, certificated licensed staff, we had some supplemental contracts that we separated out for those who have accepted as employees of Mount Vernon City Schools, and then those lay coaches who come along and accept those positions after they've already been offered. So just a couple little tweaks there. We wanted to make sure we brought to your attention that wouldn't be in a printed agenda. And so I think it's important to make that note. Under superintendent's report, I do have a really small district update I wanted to share in items for information. Most of this is items for information. And so, you know, this is kind of exciting. I realize that the district report card is not the end-all be-all. There are lots of things that make great school districts. And we have a lot of wonderful things going on. And yet, when we get an opportunity to celebrate some achievement, it's exciting to do that as well. And so the Ohio report cards came out just this past week. And I'm really proud to say that our kiddos and our teachers, we did quite well. And so that's a credit to them. The new rating system, they used to have a rating system that was kind of an A through F system. They've now changed it to stars, 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, 4 star, 5 star. Ironically, a 5 star was a 90 to 100. So that was an A, and so on and so forth. So
Bluebirds, redbirds.
yeah, so they've kind of made some changes to it, but I think the meaning behind it is important. So if you're a 1 star, it means you need significant support to meet the state standards, and the state would probably come in and begin to provide that support. You got 2 stars, you maybe just fell short of meeting the state standards. If you get 3 stars, it means you're meeting the state standards, and that would be kind of that word proficient you used to hear for a long time. So if you get 3 stars, you're on track. If you happen to get 4 stars, you're now exceeding state standards, and if you get 5 stars, you're significantly exceeding state standards, which would kind of take you into that A or excellent kind of a category. The new system has a number of different pieces to it and components. It has achievement, it has progress, gap closing, graduation, early literacy, and college and career. What you'll notice here is under achievement, this is really going to be your performance index, the old performance index score, and that's how you've done in all your state tests. And so grades 3 all the way up to 8, and then end of course exams across the district. And now this is a district overview, so it takes all of our schools together combined. We were 4 stars. We exceeded the state standards. Under progress is the old value added score. So it's the growth from one point in time in one year to the growth in a subsequent year. And that's always really important because you want to make sure you're growing at least a year worth of growth, if not more, all the time. If you were growing a year's worth of growth, you probably would be in the 3-star range because that's how it's based. But as we kind of aggregated all of the work that's going on in the district, we rated 4 stars in that as well. So we were exceeding the state average. If you look at gap closing is really simply what it states. It's trying to close the gap between our different subgroups throughout the district. And we have lots of subgroups. We have demographic subgroups. We have subgroups that might be ELA students. We might have students with disabilities. So we have lots of different subgroups, and we want to try to get that to where we're closer as a whole group. And we rated 4 stars and exceeded the state average on that as well. And for some districts, that was quite a challenge. Graduation, we're currently meeting that standard. If you go in and dig a little deeper, we're in the 90%. We are such a transient district that when you get kids who move in and move out and so on and so forth, that's a real challenge for us. And our DA Academy has helped. Meeting the state standard is great, but we'd like to bump it up and go a little bit further. Early literacy is something that's kind of a tough one to try to figure out. When you look across the state, few districts got more than 3 because it takes in multiple components. Promotion to 4th grade, you have all of those on-track, off-track students from kindergarten to 3rd grade. There's a percentage you have to move from off-track to on-track, and then meeting the 3rd grade proficiency. The college and career workforce piece, that won't be enacted or on the grade card until 24-25, and there's a whole host of things that will go into that we're kind of continuing to work through. So you kind of see there are 6 basic categories that's going to be on this grade card, and they're going to be rated as far as stars are concerned. This is our district schools when you take a look at them, and in the specific areas. So when you look at achievement, you can begin to look down through. We had 2 schools actually were 5 stars. And again, these are on the tests, but a lot of 4 stars. Value-added progress, really we had 4 schools that were exceeding beyond the level of excellence there. And then you'll notice the gap closing, where we're closing those subgroups. 5 of our schools kind of met that piece there. So, we're really proud of some of those marks and some of the schools. You're looking, East Elementary here at Wigan Street and even Twin Oak, really, really high marks. And for where some of the other schools have been and continue to navigate through some challenges, there's no question there's a socioeconomic factor and lots of other factors, transiency included, that make a difference here. This is something that's going to be on, and this is a big one, and you can go back and look at this later. We have what's called a similar district methodology. And so they take our district and they take about 12 different factors, and they end up having a grouping of districts that are just like Mount Vernon, right? And that could be, socioeconomics, demographics, size, and just a whole host of things. And so you can see some of these names: Ashland City, Salina, Marietta, New Philly, Tiffin. These are our comparable districts. Well, if you look down through achievement, remember that was those test scores, not very many 4s. And here we are, we're sitting in that range. You go to look at progress, and again, you're kind of seeing the same numbers. Look at some of the challenges that some other districts have in the area of this value-added progress measure. And here as a district, we're kind of in that exceeding the state standards. K-3 literacy, remember I told you that just about everybody, and that kind of follows through with our subgroup information as well. That gap closing, there are some districts that did, got a 5, but we're still certainly at the higher end of that. So sometimes, it's neat to look around and see folks who are like us and how they're performing. And again, this isn't the end-all be-all. The grade card doesn't necessarily tell the entire story, but it is some sort of a benchmark for us to be able to take a look at. There is some additional information that will be going on the report card. It doesn't get a grade, but whether you have your positive behavior or PBIS programs in place, opportunities to learn, school choice, wellness and physical education, attendance rate, all of these things will be listed on the report card and able to take a look at it. I think it's kind of interesting because these are like the things they all want us to do, but we sometimes have options whether to do them or not. For instance, here's one. So we have our PBIS program has been approved, it's in place, and so you'll see where it says, yes, they have it in place. But under the wellness and physical education section, we chose not to do the BMI screening, the body mass index screening. We chose not to participate in the pilot program for the physical education because we had other components going in. Well, it looks like you get kind of dung a little bit for not doing those, but yet we do have all the components of the required, notice, required wellness policies. Then they'll get into school choice, and again, a whole host of these things where they'll put down some of that information. So that'll be there for people to take a look at. I thought this was kind of interesting, mobility in the district, and so this is in that demographic section. You will see that we have a lot of mobility. Folks that move in and out, move to districts, inter or intra, and so you're seeing different subgroups, and you're looking here from 7% up to 12% to where you're almost up to 23% for some subgroups, just the transiency of moving in and out of the district. This is chronic absenteeism. I actually put the numbers up here so you can kind of see them better. Chronic absenteeism is, it really is determined based upon the truancy laws, not so many hours that someone misses. And so, we've got some students who miss a lot of school, and we have to go through the process. We can't take them to court prior to 60 days and all kinds of interesting pieces, but when students aren't in school, they don't do as well. And it's certainly there. We've talked about at some point in time, do we need some sort of a truancy officer or someone to help us get some of these kiddos to school? But when you're looking at some of these subgroups and chronic absenteeism, it certainly is, it's a concern that we need to work on. Thought I'd just share with you quickly kind of that district report card. Again, it's not the end all be all, but I'm proud of the work that's been done. I think you'll see a little bit of roller coaster sometimes because maybe when you're at the bottom, it's easier to grow quicker. As you continue to move up, it's sometimes harder to stay there. But we're real pleased with those scores. Any questions on that?
I don't have a question, just a comment, and that's I've been reading so many districts are dealing with their students being behind and not doing well on the state exams. So I think this really speaks especially well of our district and how hard our teachers and administrators have worked to bring kids up and to keep them there, and the fact that we were able to stay in school last year.
I think that's the hugest thing. We've really been in school, even from the onset of the pandemic. After those first couple months in the spring of 20, we hybrided the first 9 weeks just to be safe and get a lay of the land, but kids were still coming to school. And from that point forward, we just haven't shut down or gone remote for extended periods of time. Now, we have had some kids in our digital academy for little bits of time, and certainly we want to make sure that they kind of keep up with their typical peers.
I just give you and our teachers and our staff and our administrators all the credit, so thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. When they're referring to school choice in that area, what are they referring to?
You name it, they're referring to it. It could be community online schools, it could be open enrollment, it could be parochial schools, so you'll kind of be able to get a little demographic of all of those above.
Okay, so they're grading a school system on whether we provide those things in the community?
Remember, there's no grade for these, it's just information. So they'll go in and say, okay, here's how many students are going to a community online school. Here's how many students you might be bringing in by open enrollment. Here's might be how many are going out by open enrollment. So it's more statistical, but of course.
It affects, in the end, it'll affect our graduation rate too.
As if transiency occurs and they go back and forth, certainly that does impact. But I think you're seeing out of the legislature a real push towards school choice. And so it's not a surprise that that's going to be an item of information that's important to share.
Thank
So
you.
I was going to ask too, if, does the state provide enough underlying data that gets to these numbers so that if someone were to look at that underlying data and say, you know, there's some opportunities in here if you dice and slice this certain ways to get some ideas, maybe at the building level for improvement. I don't know if the state provides that or not.
I think we can run certain reports maybe to try to dig deeper. I don't sense that in the data that I've looked at that comes out of the report card, they're drilling down to that level. It certainly is something we have to be mindful of because, you know, we have more students that go out than come in. And that's been a trend now for the past number of years. And it may not be a ton, but it is. And so understanding and knowing why that's the case, I think that's important information to understand. Okay. The other item for information is we are looking to have a special board meeting on Friday, September 30th. I'm looking to make that a morning meeting. You know, I think I mentioned in an update, 7:30 would work well. If 7:30 is a little too early, then you know, we could do 8 o'clock. And this is for the sole purpose of this special meeting is to approve 2 bigger projects that are going on in the district. Tomorrow we'll actually get our roof bids for the high school because we're re-roofing the high school. And then the following Monday, we're getting the school-based health center bids. And we're hoping that with those 2 bids, we'll give you all of that information prior to that Friday meeting. But really it allows contractors to know that we can move forward. There's such a lead time with everything in the area of construction. The sooner we can make that announcement and get it going. So that really is the only 2 things I anticipate. It could be a 15-minute meeting, maybe even less than that, unless you have questions and want to have some conversations. I know Dr. Bennett's looking at me and say, Bill, you've never had a 15-minute meeting.
It's always the first time.
I'll try my hardest. And so, you know, 7:30, I know there's a concern with some who work. I don't know if that's okay or if 8 is better. I know for my retired administrators here, 8 would be better than 7:30. Is there any preference for the board?
Those who work, what's best for you?
What's the best thing for you?
It doesn't have to be that early.
8's fine, I mean, I can do 8, 9, Jeff, you have to get out of town, right?
I'm fine. My day actually is open.
Okay.
So
I'm
whatever you decide, I'm there.
8 o'clock.
8,
8 o'clock?
So moved.
Do I hear 8:30 going on?
8:30 might be better.
8:30?
All right. Let's if we're okay with 8:30, let's go with 8:30.
8:30
8:30
a.m.
even.
And I'll bring the donuts.
And I even put exclamation point.
Item 3 is just another informational item. So there's been an opportunity for districts, and most districts are now moving in this direction at the 9-12 level only to have Narcan available at the high school. Thankfully, we're not hearing any of those kinds of needs among the student population, at least during the school day, but I think you're finding some are just concerned about older, where it tends to be a bit more prevalent at this point, extracurricular activities or events. God forbid we'd ever have to use it, but it's there if we had to use it. There certainly is training that goes involved with that, and it is free to us to have that on hand. I think you're finding most public entities now are making this a pretty standard thing. So we've applied for it. We'll see if we get it, but I wanted to bring it to your information.
And a nurse would be administering this? Is that correct?
A nurse or a trained individual, yes. I certainly couldn't, at a 8 o'clock basketball game in the evening, you know, if a fan just had an issue, we'd have to have the right people that would know what to do.
It's similar to a diabetic.
Similar. You definitely know the warning signs. The part about it is, even if it was administered and all the signs were there and maybe it wasn't, there seems to be a level of assurance that it wouldn't hurt an individual to have that. I know, Jeff, you've had some experience in your job with it.
yeah, I work for the State History Museum, and we incorporated this past year. It's just better to be prepared than not. You have usually a moment to decide. So I'd rather have it there than not.
And this is a nasal spray, almost like, like I take for my allergy medication, just a couple squirts up the nostril. And again, I hope we never have to use it, but if it could have that potential to save a life, that's why we would do it. And again, this would only be at the high school. And then the last item for information tonight is, this is the first reading of a variety of board policies. All those board policies are listed there for you. Please feel free to take a look at those policies. Some of them, most of them, quite frankly, when you look at them, is just updates, and they're just changing terms and making them a little bit easier to read. Very few of them are really drastic changes. For instance, small unmanned aircrafts. I took a look at it, I go, well, what's different about it? Well, now there's a federal regulation, and that's what's in green right here. And so they tell you need to put that down. So I don't think you're gonna find any real surprises here, but we always wanna keep our board policies updated, and we meet in the fall and in the spring of every year, and they bring things to our attention. So please feel free to look those over. If you have questions, feel free to let us know. We won't approve these until the October meeting or our second reading. Under items for board approval tonight, I have just 3 things in this section. We have a memorandum of understanding for Rally Point evacuation. We're going to use the First Presbyterian Church as an evacuation site for Pleasant Street Elementary. We were going to Memorial Theater. We found ourselves having to cross several roads to get there. It still was a great site because it could house everything, but as we started to look at our emergency operating plans, was there a better place that we could go? If you go up Pleasant Street, then come down Day Street, you can, without crossing any major roads, and they're more than welcoming to welcome the size that we need. Again, hopefully we never have to use that, but we want to make sure we can get to safe places as quickly as we can. One home
Do
community.
we have that for all of our buildings?
We do. Every building has a rally point.
Thank you.
And quite frankly, the reunification point, the rally point is where they go just to get away from the building. No parents are to ever go to rally points. Reunification point is here.
Oh, yeah.
So this is where we would bus our students from any rally point to this location. There'd be a whole setup, and that's where we would reunify students and parents. Again, hopefully we never have to enact that plan. We will be practicing that reunification plan this year at some point with staff. Number 2 is home and community school student participation. And number 3, our board has to recommend to the Mount Vernon City Recreation Board 2 members periodically to be on that board. And thankfully, Andrew Hedrick and Heather Barber have agreed to act on behalf of Mount Vernon City Schools on the Mount Vernon City Recreation Board. Those 3 items for your approval.
Yeah, I would entertain a motion to approve those 3 items as read.
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion and a second. Are there any questions? Will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Workman?
Yes.
Mr. Ward?
Yes.
Mr. Goladai?
Yes.
Getzmann?
Yes.
Dr. Bennett?
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. For student success, I'll try to be as brief as I can. I looked at the second one, the theater classes teach performance and social skills. And this was kind of interesting because a former actor, Mr. Pantone, talks about his after-school theater program for high school students with multiple disabilities and K through 2nd grade students with autism. He has master's degrees in theater and special education, and he was recently recognized with the Big Apple Award by the city of Brooklyn. He said he's been creatively challenged to provide supports to meet IEPs, and some of the ways he's done that is by giving step-by-step directions, by modifying the choreography, and adapting script lines to help students succeed. And he's noticed that disruptive behaviors really dissipated, and the cast become more supportive of each other, and because of their interest in acting, it impacts their schoolwork and they start doing better and behavior improves. And he says some of the supports that have helped are assistive communication devices, motion detection technology, and peer-to-peer interaction. And he gave the example of a student in a wheelchair who's non-ambulatory and an ambulatory student who would help that student get around. And then nonverbal communication, body language, facial expressions, etc. are some of the techniques he uses. His mantra is to accept all offers, and that sounds a little strange, but what he means by that is even when a response that a student makes doesn't make sense to you, or it's not immediately apparent, to just accept that, and then as you get to know the student, you'll begin to understand what they have in mind. He also points out that in the post-COVID environment now, he can again expose students to theater productions and museums and dance and music, concerts, and to make learning fun. And he recommended a great book, Lost at School by Ross Greene. I haven't read this book, so I can't recommend it, but he recommends it. So the third article is about U.S. teens now preferring YouTube. I just thought this was kind of an interesting point. 95% prefer YouTube versus TikTok at 67%, Snapchat and Instagram are approximately 60%, and Facebook is down to 32%. So big change there. And then the last is the seventh, the in-depth article on student achievement. And I thought it was interesting, the social emotional learning buddy program, which talks about it's given by the assistant principal and professional development specialist, Gina Robles, and she describes the buddy program that pairs middle school or older elementary students with pre-K through first grade students to accelerate social and emotional skills. And she said that those have declined during the pandemic, and with adequate planning and supervision, these buddy relationships can really help younger students develop those socialization skills. She also said that it motivates the older students to better behavior because they're now seeing themselves as being examples and they're dealing with poor behavior themselves, so they understand how it impacts learning. So she said it's really, it helps them as well as it helps the younger students. Some of the tips to plan and organize a buddy program is to create a mission that's aligned with schools, and she mentioned something like a service or a PBIS goal that the school would be committed to. She said you need to set up rules and procedures. Never pick or carry your buddy, for example, might be a rule, and to avoid inappropriate topics of conversation. And to suggest activities so that the mentors have an idea of what they can do with younger students, such as if they're learning about plants in their classes, then the buddies could take a nature walk around the school, supervised of course. But also older students learn concepts better when they teach them to others, and I think all of us know that if you teach something, then you really learn it for yourself. And then social emotional learning connection, the teachers can choose a skill to practice, such as regulating emotions, and help the older students to model that and discuss how they react when they're frustrated in playing a game or doing a project, and help the younger students deal with that. And I know, I didn't ask Mrs. Keaton, but do we still have the program that you were doing with mentoring? So
And
we're
actually,
already doing that at the high school.
All of
And
those
this
things
is middle
apply.
school and upper elementary, so we need to move it down.
Well, I know there are a couple elementary schools that do the buddy system with the olders, the primary and secondary.
But we're not, all schools aren't doing it though, are they?
That I don't know, I don't think so,
Certain
but I know
schools.
there are some.
Anyway, I thought it would be beneficial, so if we can expand it, that'd be great. Any other questions?
I just have a comment that here in our own school system, many times we've had art and the performing arts that can reach students in a different way, as this gentleman did. And as an example, we've had children who are nonverbal or whatever and have the experience of a theater, and it helps them develop skills to even be able to look someone in the eye. And then a former student who was very gifted was having a difficulty in school, and as soon as he became a theater buff, he opened up and his anxiety level went down, and he's now a scientist somewhere doing brain things. So anyway, what we've done here in our school system, I think we have a lot of success with. And of course, Shrek is coming up with a lot of our students that are going to be performing this weekend.
And I think, isn't this week the Yes Concerts?
Yes, so
Yes, concert.
great
Yeah.
parallel there. I mean, we really would like to introduce all of our students to the arts, the performing arts. And so all from kindergarten all the way up through, there's opportunities. And this week, second, third graders are seeing Shrek Jr. And so they've got just various things planned throughout. And you're right, some kids just see their classmates up there and they become enthusiastic about those kinds of things. So.
And we are so blessed in our community with MTV Arts, and it's awesome. In fact, my daughters who don't live in Mount Vernon are very jealous because they remember how many opportunities there were when they were in school. And they don't have that for their kids, so.
Yeah, there's a new one, the singing board members. Have you heard about this one?
That's scary.
Led by Mary Revolt. Solo.
The last item for information, we've already heard a good bit about, and so that Scotland, England, Paris visit in 2024 is listed. We have no items for board approval tonight in this section.
And business services.
All right, from the report, go to page 3 there, Mr. Hugh.
Any particular area?
You're good. Just wanted to point out, we discussed this in preview, but you'll see a negative in the general property tax. That's because we get our advances. And you can see the totality of them in the column to the right of the highlighted number. And then the fees and stuff come out of our budget once we've received the final settlement for this portion of the calendar year. You see pub taxes right below that. And then you have our typical foundation payment. It's been running pretty steady, and restricted grant aids and all that type of stuff. Not much else going on. Like I feel like I repeat myself a lot, but general fund is probably the easiest part of my job at this point. But it's good information. Obviously, we're gearing up for the forecast, which we'll bring to the board in November, and have a lot more detailed information regarding our finances at that point. Do have one more attachment of modification. Just had to bump up an appropriation to cover the cost of our tax anticipation note. So we have to shift funds from our permanent improvement account to our bond account, which is from the 003 to the 002, in order to continue paying our tax anticipation note. If you remember, we refinanced so that we could reduce that, thankfully, before interest rates started going up. So I think we still have 8 more years to pay on the tax anticipation note that we took out to build the bus garage, essentially. So that's it in terms of my world. I'll read the donations and then answer any questions that you have. We have a donation from Shoe Sensation. Why can't I say that very well? 13 pairs of shoes, 208 pairs of socks, 15 book bags, and 3 lunch bags. I happen to be coming in to the boardroom at central office as the principals were leaving, and the elementary principals were very thankful for all of this. They were gobbling this stuff up to take back to their buildings. So we appreciate the donation from that entity. And we have a donation from the Hopewell United Methodist Church, backpack, sanitizer, crowns, etc., to Dan Emmett Elementary. So we appreciate the Hopewell United Methodist Church for their donation as well.
Thank you very much. And I would entertain a motion to approve those 3 items.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Regola-Dye. Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Mr. Rickman. And were there any questions? Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Rolladay.
Yes.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Mr. Ward.
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. And Mrs. Ladai.
Thank you. A very brief report. The State House, of course, is still in recess. But we do have some information from the state of Ohio Computer Science Plan, which focuses on K through 12 education. The state committee on this particular program approved 10 recommendations. Some of these are, include creating an Office of Computer Science Education, that Ohio should dedicate 1% of state educational funding, or $4 million per year, to computer science education, and 1 credit in computer science as a graduation requirement. That's just a few of the recommendations. And Mr. Cedar had already gone through our school report card. And then for a federal perspective on things, you can go to the Consortium of State School Boards Association Weekly Education Report. This weekly report is very informative on federal legislation, and I really appreciate that coming to us from our new organization that we're a member of. That's it for now.
Thank you.
We have a number of items for board approval tonight in this section. They're primarily facility requests. You'll see soccer, a number of good news clubs, transportation department. We're going to be using our transportation department lounge area for bus recertification. So folks are going to be coming to Mount Vernon for some of that training, where we used to always have to go somewhere else. It's nice when our people need to be recertified, we can do that here locally. The use of East Gymnasium all the way up to 10:30 on October 7th for Mrs. Frackman's camp Read a Lot. I think she used to actually spend the night in years past. Now they made it 10:30, so couldn't do it anymore.
That's long enough right there, I tell you.
Yeah.
And item number 2 here is a change order for the high school boiler replacement. Basically, the boiler came in and we needed to get an additional lift to be able to put that boiler replacement in there. So that was a small change order, I think of about $5,000. So those 2 items for your approval.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve those 2 items as read.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mrs. Getzmann. Were there any questions?
Good to see Mr. Carter back. Welcome back. And thank you for putting together the Good News Clubs.
Right.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Ward.
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Mr. Rolladay.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you.
Under student services, I don't think there's a lot of OHSAA information. I know you're a part of that group, but they only meet a couple times a year.
Yes, we're waiting, he said we'd be meeting soon once school got started, so I'm assuming in October, November, we should be getting back together.
So when you get those state football Loge tickets, let me know.
I will let you know, yes, if I get 2, well, you know.
We have no items for board approval in this section tonight. Moving on down to item section 11, personnel, certificated and licensed staff. We have a number of items in this section. You'll see number 1, there are some salary change notices. Oftentimes you'll see salary change notices to this effect, really due to the fact that they take on extracurricular activities and then they end up getting paid throughout the entire school year. So it makes a change to their salary. So that's why you see so many there. We do have the employment of a number of other salaried positions. Thankfully, Amy Bings will be joining. Actually, today we should have been her first day. You recall we had the retirement of a social worker at Pleasant Street, Mrs. Odie, who was amazing. And so they've been without their extra support person at Pleasant Street. And so I think Amy's going to do a great job and welcome her here. A couple resignations, rescinded contract for outdoor ed. Actually, we transitioned Susan out of outdoor ed. She did it last year and we got someone else ready to go because Susan's going to retire. And so, unfortunately, we gave her a contract and she did that. She had kind of stepped aside to give that to someone else. Number of substitute teachers there listed, a variety of supplemental contracts, as you can see there. And you'll notice most of these are really winter sport kind of things, but you notice a lot of homework study tables. So we're going to start to ramp up some of our after-school programming for support. Obviously, all these people aren't working every night, but we just make sure we have a nice list of folks who can help us out in those sections. And then a couple extracurricular contracts for folks who are inside the district. As I mentioned earlier, we moved some folks out who are not current employees. So this next set of extracurricular contracts are folks who don't currently work in the district but are taking on some responsibilities there. You'll notice, I know this might be of interest to you, Mr. Sant will be
Saw that.
our swim coach. So
I heard the rumors. Good to be confirmed.
Good. And we also have a few volunteers relative to some different supplementals there. So those items for your approval tonight.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve those licensed certificated staff items as read.
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Getzmann. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Wilson, thank you. Are there any questions? Call roll, please.
Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Mr. Ward.
Yes.
Mr. Rolla
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. And classified staff.
Final section tonight, just a couple items for information. Some custodial changes, a few little changes at Twin Oak. Really a first shift moving to second shift and vice versa. Same thing at the middle school. We had a little shift in custodial personnel and a high school 3-hour cook is requesting a leave of absence, really to be home to support some personal situations. Items for board approval tonight are the couple 2-year contracts, substitute employment, transfer, and then some supplemental responsibilities. So those 4 items for your approval tonight.
Okay, would entertain a motion to approve those items.
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Regola-Dye and Mr. Ward. Are there any questions? Would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Regola-Dye.
Yes.
Mr. Ward.
Yes.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. Would you like to begin this evening, Mr. Ward? With any board comments that you have?
Sure. I find the school report card fascinating, and was really proud of the district. I looked at a lot of the districts. I'm a data guy. I warned the superintendent about that ahead of time. But I looked at a lot of districts and I saw a lot of waving numbers, a 4 and a 2 and a 1, and there was just a relative consistency about what we're doing that I also liked as part of the numbers. So I really want to commend our teaching faculty, our superintendent, those at central office that are involved, from the curriculum to all the various programs that are involved. That takes a lot of work. So thank you on behalf of myself as a board member. Thank you for that.
Okay, Mr. Regola-Dye.
Thank you to those who are here this evening and who may be watching at home. I'd like to thank the community, because without them, we wouldn't be able to have some of those decent scores and nice scores, and also the activities that are happening in our school system. And our local colleges who are learning from us, I hope. And I'd like to say a personal thank you to our board president, Margie Bennett. It is certainly an honor to work with her. It's an honor to work with all of these people here. And I'd also like to say a big thank you to our custodial staff, maintenance. When you pass by on the drive here and you look at our campus from the distance, it's stunning. And so everybody is contributing to that. And we hope that many of you will attend these wonderful activities that have been planned this week for our military personnel. So thank you to our community and thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Mrs. Getzman.
Well, I have a note of appreciation to share with the board and with the community. I had the pleasure to talk to Darren Prince in person this weekend. And he again extended his appreciation to the board for the courtesy that we extended to him and his family as he embarks his endeavor. He was home this weekend. He will be leaving, and then he will have the opportunity to at least see his wife for 2 days in November. He was uncertain about his children at that time, but then he will be back next summer. And he said, I appreciate and ask for prayer support during this difficult time, but he is excited and is meeting the challenge. And he said, please don't underestimate the thought that I am not thinking about the middle school, that I'm not thinking about my teachers, my staff, and all of my kids. So he said, thank you.
Thank you for sharing that.
That's great.
Mr. Workman.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank everyone for coming this evening. Exciting to hear with school starting, everything ramping up, sports, different activities. Really appreciate the first responder and military awareness week. I think that was a great idea. A lot of neat events around that. And I guess just finally, I'd like to congratulate Dr. Bennett on a milestone. That's a great milestone, so thank you.
Yeah.
Significant.
Significant.
Oh, and I'd just like to thank everyone for coming and again, to thank our staff, teachers, and students for making us look good.
Yeah.
So we're very proud of all of our students. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay, and if you'll call the roll, please.
Mr. Ward.
Yes.
Mrs. Getzman.
Yes.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Mr. Rolla-Dye.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes. We are adjourned. Again, thanks for coming. Thank you. What a great looking group.
You folks required.